Good morning, folks. This is Catherine, and for those that don't know, this is ZL3CATH, Catherine. I was interested in getting my ham radio license, amateur radio license. You know, you probably nearly 50 years ago, I would have seen things on TV occasionally, normally a bunch of old men in some drafty sheds with huddled over valve radios, you know, hello Kansas, can you hear me Kansas, kind of thing. At the time you needed to get Morse code to a certain proficiency level to get a basic license, and there was another license classes higher up. And I attended a couple of club meetings in Mount Lawley, Western Australia back in the 1980s, and at the time then, whether the walk down the dark street and back home again at night for the night class that they had at the one of the polytechs there, I don't know if that was scary or trying to learn the Morse code. So anyway, that didn't happen. I mean, I was a licensed CBer in New Zealand in the late 70s, early 80s, and I used CB again in Australia. And then about just a few months ago, I came across a YouTube video, and it happened to mention that the requirement for Morse code was gotten rid of on an international basis in 2003. And it was also mentioned on this, various YouTube videos that these cheap Chinese radios are available. And I've got one here. And they make a point of saying, they call it, its brand name is a Baofeng, which is Chinese sounding enough. And it's tiny. I mean, this is it against my hand. When it first came in the mail, I actually thought, oh, they've sent me the children's model by mistake. And even about that, a quarter of that is the battery. It's a rechargeable battery, a little bit like a mobile phone. They refer to these as being like $30 US. But in New Zealand, if you buy them in from China, including delivery, it's about $50. So, as you see, it's got a keypad with buttons and that kind of thing. If you buy them in New Zealand, you need to show proof that you've got your amateur license. Now, I actually bought this while my amateur license was pending, but because it was from China, it just came anyway. I did pass my license on the first attempt. Yeah, I studied a bit at home. The club actually run classes, but I'd actually sort of been studying the book at home and said, well, I want to take my test early. And so they arrange a couple of approved people to supervise the test, because it is internationally approved. And I passed with a good mark on my first attempt, so that was cool. I did actually attend later their class, and learned a few more things. As it is, as these come, they work, you know. Now, with the amateur, compared to CB radio, amateur allows you a wider range of frequencies and a wider range of power. You're allowed more power. So even a little walkie-talkie like this thing is 5 watts. It doesn't matter if you don't know how much a watt is, it's got 5 of them. So 5 watts. And the power of any radio is limited on probably 3 things. The power that comes out, in this case 5 watts, which obviously has to come from the battery. The size of the aerial, and as you see that's about 7 inches or about 175 centimetres. 175 millimetres, sorry. And the other thing is how high you are, which is why most radio stations put their towers either on a hill, or if there's no hills, on a tall building. So clearly that aerial does not poke up very high, especially if you're holding this at like 4 feet, 5 feet high. So what you can do, you can get an extra aerial, and again, bought in cheaply from China. This was less than $3 New Zealand, including postage. Note that it would have cost me $3 New Zealand to have an empty envelope posted from the North Island to New Zealand. And it screws in here. So there we go. And that gives you a little bit more power because you've got a bigger aerial, it's a little bit more efficient, more signals getting out. Now, in the car, I can receive with this alright, but it won't transmit. Because a car is basically a big steel box, and the signal's trying to get out the windows. That's what it amounts to. So you can buy a little aerial. But there's a number of different aerials. Now here's one. This actually cost me less than $5 New Zealand, including postage from China. And again, you couldn't get an empty envelope postage for that. And as you see, it's got a little magnet base. That's only, what, 3 centimetres diameter. The aerial itself is about 50 millimetres, or about 2 inches longer than the walkie-talkie's original aerial. And it comes with a length of lead on it. And this particular one already came with the correct fitting to screw into the top of the little walkie-talkie there. If you'd have a different brand of aerial, you might need to have a little adapter. And I've got that. Now this is actually a really cheap one, less than $5 for the whole thing. I've actually got a bigger one that's nearly a metre high, and the base on it is almost as round as a teacup saucer. And it came with a much thicker and better quality cable and a longer cable. And I actually use it inside the house, and I'll indicate that to you later. But I've actually used this one even more than 50 k's out of town, and I was getting a good signal. I was able to communicate with people clearly. Something to keep in mind is that these little walkie-talkies and that, the way they work now is they use FM, and if you know from your radio that you're listening to, FM, the music and speech is clearer, so that's good. And it's on the VHF and UHF frequencies, which is where your TV is, or used to be, depending on where you are. Now by themselves, even with this bigger aerial, around town it's going to go 1 or 2 kilometres to 5 to 8 kilometres, or about 5 miles or whatever. But throughout most of the sort of developed world, radio clubs have put repeater stations, which is a booster, somewhere nearby. It could be on a tall building, it could be up on a local hill. And so if this is transmitting and gets to the booster, that booster signal, and that way it can go, 50 or 100 kilometres or whatever, depending on how far to the next, wherever the person is. And that's how these things work and why they get a good range. Amateur radio clubs still have if not a legal requirement, in the past I've often trained and helped out in emergency situations. A bad storm, whatever, if the power goes down, if the grid goes down, if the phones aren't working, the guys from amateur radio can get out there with a transmitter. They can, even if the aerial's blown down, they can string a piece of wire up in a tree, they can get it to work. So most of these repeater stations that have been installed around the world by various radio clubs, a great many, maybe not all of them, but a great many of them actually have some form of backup battery, solar panels, a wind generator to top up the charge in the battery, something like that. So they can still be of use in an emergency if the normal power's gone out. Now, some other accessories are available with these too, that some people tend to buy. Now this, again, is less than $5 delivered from China. So it's an extension. It works as a speaker and a microphone. Now when I first tried it, it was pretty useless actually. Supposedly these plug-in microphones give you a bit of an advantage. If for no other reason than if you're right at the limit of reception, you can hold this up high with one hand and talk down here. There gives you another half a metre so of height, and that could be what you need. But when I first started transmitting with this, it was less good than using the tiny little built-in microphone that these come with. So, but a number of people had said on the internet and also at the local radio club that these cheaply made ones, there's only a little wee hole where the microphone, through the plastic, where the microphone is located behind that, and it doesn't line up with 100% accuracy. So, looking on the internet, and they're all much of a muchness, there's 100 different brands of these things. I just undid the screws, lifted out the insides, got a hand drill, drilled the hole a little bit bigger than it had been, and it's fine. They come with a belt clip. I find it useful here at home, clipping it just on a box with a couple of weights in it. And there we go, job done. Now that got me started for when I was first legal and had my licence. And then later on I bought a more powerful unit. Now as I said before, with these little bow fangs, hang on, I'm caught up on a wire here. With these little bow fangs, you've got about 5 watts output power, and it's all that power's got to come from a little battery that's a little bit bigger than a mobile phone battery, clips on the back there. You can recharge that just on a little charger. Some people buy extra batteries and that so they can change from one to the other, but unless you're going out bushwalking for days at a time, it's probably not worth it. These will run for something like 8 hours, something more than 8 hours on just on that little battery, so they're very efficient with the electricity. Anyway, I actually bought another radio, and this was just over 100 New Zealand dollars delivered, and here it is here. There we go, we hold that up that way. It's and again, it's tiny compared to what you might have thought. It's little bigger than a cigarette packet, than a standard cigarette packet. You've got the microphone here. The speaker is actually the round thing built in there. Just hold the angle of that to the light. You can see the ridges. This is to give off some heat, and it has actually got a cooling fan in the back, tiny little fan on the back there, as well as a connector for the aerial there. And so these are designed primarily to go in a car. Therefore there's no battery needed. You can either wire it straight into your electric system, or you can, I'm just going to shake my mouse there a little bit. You can either wire these straight into the electrical system, or you can put them on a cigarette lighter plug and plug them in a cigarette lighter. Yes, you do need to run it off to an aerial, which you'll put on the roof, or you could screw one in the mudguard, or you can have a magnet mount one you put on the roof or on the boot. And because these have more power available, because it's coming from the car battery, these put out roughly 25 watts. So you're looking at 5 times the power, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Oh, and they have more powerful ones too. But again, this has the functions of the walkie-talkie. You notice we've got numbers on the, I'm not sure if they show up on the video there. You've got numbers on the keys. So as well as, although the microphone part of this is only small, it's basically a handheld keypad, and you can give commands to the radio via the numbers. On the walkie-talkie, you see there are numbered keys here. So this one, since it came in the mail, I'd had thoughts of putting it in the car at first, and then I decided, maybe not immediately, and what I got was a mains adapter to run it as a house radio, and I have it was $30. Someone put me onto it. They were about $30 delivered, and I'll just put that away out of. That is so tiny, it just sits down beside the television. It just sits down just beside the television. It can fit there. Little mains adapter. It's a bit like a laptop power pack. It reduces the power. It makes it all nice, lovely power that the radio likes, and that runs that. And for the aerial for it, I've got just a larger version, the one that I spoke to you about, of this magnet mount antenna. So it's just got a much bigger magnet mount and a better quality cable. That actually sits just on a table by the window. Because it's good for them to sit on they're supposed to sit on a metal base. It's on an oven tray, just a flat oven tray, and that gives it a bit of metal under the bottom of it, which it likes to have. So that's my sort of normal home unit. I might try this one right now. We'll just see what's there. Okay, well that's one of the locals talking there. When you've got this accessory microphone hand thing plugged in, as well as being the microphone instead of the microphone there, it's also the loudspeaker, which would mean if you're in a, you might be able to hear it a little bit better than that one, who knows. They do have little in-ear buds that also plug in, and also these cables, although this accessory port here is unusual looking. It looks like that. So 2 jack plugs, one big, one small, in one unit. They actually have an adapter plug that goes in there. And you can connect these into a computer system. And at the Ham Radio Club, they have, and there's a similar system for the car radio I showed you earlier. You connect it into the radio system, and instead of having to manually program 10 or 15 or however many channels using these buttons and decimal point, the exact frequency you want and all that kind of thing, they have a preset one in the club rooms. They just plug your radio in, it programs in a couple of minutes. And something we can have in Christchurch here, and it would vary from place to place, we can also listen in on the fire brigade and the ambulance. The police are a different system entirely nowadays. And the way the club have their little computer program set up, they disable the transmit on the fire brigade and ambulance frequencies, because we are allowed to listen to them, we're not allowed to transmit on them at all. So that stops you perhaps accidentally transmitting on those frequencies if you were unclear. It has a display. Obviously the display is limited by battery power, whereas the car or home radio can have a bigger and brighter display because it can use a lot more power. We'll just see if somebody's there. Right, so the person who's talking was gone. This is the main local repeater for Christchurch, so it's where, here it's called Marley's, and we'll just put out a call and see if anyone's there at the moment. This is ZL3CATH Catherine. We're calling on 147.05 Marley's, and we're asking for a radio contact. We are demonstrating this to a non-ham. This is ZL3CATH listening on 147.05. Over.
ZL3CATH, this is ZL1 Romeo Charlie Alpha, mobile on the motorway at the south of Christchurch.
Well, thank you very much for coming back to me, ZL1. I'm sorry I've failed to get the last of your call sign, but your call sign from Auckland, or the northern half of the North Island, obviously. This is ZL3CATH, and apparently you're on the motorway south of Christchurch there. I'll put it back to you there for a minute. Over to you, ZL1 from ZL3CATH. Over.
ZL3CATH from ZL1 Romeo Charlie Alpha, as in Radio Corporation America, from the motorway south of Christchurch heading to Dunedin, and your signal's good here, and no problems there, and coming through fine. ZL3CATH from ZL1 RCA Mobile.
Well, thank you very much for your contact there, ZL1 RCA Mobile. Yeah, heading down to Dunedin. I've not heard you on round to Christchurch before. Are you able to say if you're coming down from all the way from Auckland for, you're travelling down this way, are you? Because I just haven't heard you locally. Back to you, ZL1 RCA from ZL3CATH. Over.
ZL3CATH from ZL1 RCA Mobile after a pause. Yeah, we're travelling down from Auckland to Bluff, delivering a antique china cabinet to my daughter who lives in Stewart Island. So yeah, home domicile is Auckland. That's correct, and we've driven down, come over the Cook Strait, through Kaikoura, and now we're heading to Dunedin today. Over.
Well, thank you very much, ZL1 RCA. And it's a good reminder there that in between transmissions we are supposed to leave a small break, because there could be someone else listening on the side who has a message or would like to contact us. So yeah, from Auckland, which is almost the north of the North Island, to you're driving to Bluff, which is the very bottom of the South Island, and the Stewart Island, which is below, which is of course below the bottom of the South Island. You need a boat to go there or an aeroplane, and you're having a really good road trip. So I wish you all the best. I thank you for the contact, and maybe I'll catch you on the way back again in a few more days. So thank you very much. Actually, I forgot to ask your first name, but I'll put it back to you for a final there. This is ZL1, this is ZL3 CATH, and we're putting it back to ZL1 RCA. My first name's Catherine, and I'll put it back to you for a final there. Over.
ZL3 CATH from ZL1 Romeo Charlie Alpha. Name here is India. India Alpha November. Ian. India Alpha November. And good to make your contact, Catherine, and have a good day. And we'll just listen out to on the way to Ashburton. Over.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. I wish you all the best for your travel and to deliver that item down there all that way to your daughter. And this is ZL3CATH. And thank you for the contact there, ZL1RCA. I'll catch you later, Ian, and look after yourself. 73s. And I did make a note in my notebook of all worldly knowledge, and make a note of the time there too. Under the New Zealand licensing system, once you newly get your license, you're required to make 50 contacts at least in the first 3 months, and you're required to keep a copy of that log on paper, on the computer, it doesn't matter, for a full year, in case a radio inspector wants to come and inspect it. Once you're past that 3 months, you no longer have to record your contacts, and after a year you don't have to keep a permanent log at all. Most people probably do keep a log. A lot of people do for competitions. People that know me know that I have about slightly less than zero interest in competitions. But I if you make overseas contacts, that might well interest you. Now, there was something else I wanted to demonstrate, and I need to change this to a different channel. And I normally use the other machine for this one.
2, 3.
And also in my book of all worldly knowledge, or at least some knowledge, you may recall just earlier I said how there are repeater stations operated by, or set up by radio clubs all around the world. And some of these are linked. Around New Zealand they have a link that works by like microwave or radio waves. And it goes not the entire distance of the country, but for much of the country. And it links the major towns, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin. It doesn't quite get as far as this our last contact there, Ian, was going. I better write his name down before we forget. And that was Ian. Well, a lot of those repeaters are linked either by radio waves or around the world. Sometimes some of them on the internet. The way the New Zealand call signs work, ZL is New Zealand. 3 is the upper half of the South Island, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 as you 1, 2, 3, 4 as you go down. That's why when he said he was ZL1, I instantly knew well, it was an Auckland number. You can choose an out of area. There's a little bit of leeway now in your call signs. When I when I got my licence, ZL3 CAT was already taken by some guy called Bryce. Maybe he likes cats, I don't know. I could have picked ZL4 Dunedin number, maybe, or ZL1 or 2 from Auckland or Wellington if I'd wanted, but I'm from Christchurch and Canterbury. I wanted to be ZL3. But you're allowed more than 3 letters. In the past, it had to be 2 or 3 letters, and when it first started, the government would tell you what the letters were. Now you can choose them within limits, and if those letters haven't already been used by someone. So I was able to have 4 letters, CATH. Someone at the club made me up the hat, which was very nice of them. But referring to how some international transmitters are, now I've got some listed here, because I can't remember off by heart. 5410. So let's have a look at this. We're on, got to work out which way the numbers are, because I don't normally use this one. So I have to hold the button in and type on the keyboard.
qp13 link on.
This is ZL3 CATH, Zulu Lima 3, Charlie Alpha Tango Hotel, Christchurch, New Zealand. Calling Glasgow. Does anyone there have a copy? Would like to come back to me? This is ZL3 CATH, Zulu Lima 3, Charlie Alpha Tango Hotel, Christchurch, New Zealand. Calling Glasgow. Does anyone there have a copy? Over. And usually when you call international, everyone's in bed. So, because we're in New Zealand and they're all on the wrong side of the world. If you've given up or you decide to move on, we then clear the link.
Thank you for visiting GBCKE. Please return soon. Link clear.
So, we gave Glasgow a go, but nobody was home. They're probably all down the local, having a bit of a bevy. So that's mostly what I wanted to show. And with the car radio, you use the buttons on the microphone to access those 4-digit codes. There's link-ups all around the world. Again, they would only work if the internet's working for that particular thing. So, that's what I've been doing lately. I've actually ordered another, a little walkie-talkie. They're almost identical to this. Costs a little bit more, but well, actually it costs double. It costs $100 instead of 50 New Zealand. And it has a number of digital functions. So it does everything this does, but it also does, it can access transmitters and receive in different ways. So it can get signals through when there's when it's a bit less, conditions are less good, and it can send. I think some of those digital modes you can send short text messages and that too, which is good for if you're trying to get an address through and you can't quite hear the numbers clearly, something like that. So that's all for now, and I think I've ever had enough and-ums. So I need to... My computer's gone to sleep again now. I'll shake the mouse. It might not be enough. Oh, there it is. Yeah. There's a photo up there. You can't see it because you're on the video. That's all, folks. This is... it's actually slightly after 8 AM now. On the... Thursday the 6th of September 2018. We'll probably see a wee bit of sun today. Actually, we'll probably have some clear sun in between a wee bit of cloud. We're supposed to get several days in a row, maximum temperature about 11 degrees Celsius, so not terribly warm, but at least not raining. And this video is now prattled on for long enough. I need to get this sorted and get it uploaded. So, that's that. Alright folks, this is, in case I forget who I am, this is ZL3CATH, Zulu Lima 3, Charlie Alpha Tango Hotel. First name's Catherine. And we're going over and out, really, when you think of it. And we'll catch you another time. So as they say, 73s.